Good morning, everyone. They keep me on a pretty tight timeline, and that's always risky. You give a pastor a microphone and say, keep it short, pastor, and that's always a relative term. First and foremost, it is a humble privilege. We have hosted this for, 13, 14 years. And, sometimes I get questions, so why are we doing this? And to me, it's a really simple answer. And that is that to extend the love of God, to extend the truth and the grace and the mercy and the hope of our Savior is absolutely the right thing to do. And if we can give facilities and give support to that, I think that is exactly within the mission of the church. And so we do want to welcome you here and pray that this morning our spirit does abundantly more with this time than what Foster and his team could even begin to put together. So as John said, I get an opportunity just to spend a few moments just to kind of share perhaps a word of encouragement or at least some kind of opportunity to think in a perhaps a more global perspective. And then I will close us in a prayer. And so if you remember your high school physics class, one of the more thoroughly accepted theories is SLOT, the second law of thermodynamics. And there's really three components to the second law of thermodynamics. And the one I want to talk about this morning is part of that theory of entropy. And entropy, let me just read exactly what it says. Entropy is the measure of how disorganized and random a system is. The second law of thermodynamics says that unless outside energy is provided, a system will find its entropy, its disorder, and staying the same or increasing as time goes on. A system will never get more ordered without outside intervention. So essentially what it says, that things left unattended turn to ruin, turn to disorder. That is a physical law. You put a refrigerator in the front yard, after 20 years it turns to rust. It doesn't get better, it tends towards disorder. And I believe our God is a God of consistency. He created the world and he created us as two creations, nature and man. And so there is a harmony in the design. And so in this season, undoubtedly, there's an intense focus on finding work, and I get that. And that is right, and that is good, and there is everything makes sense about that. My word this morning is perhaps to remind you that there are other things in your life that are worthy and valuable, and that it's hard when you're focused on one thing to create that same attention attending to other things. Things such as your family. Things such as your spouse if you're married. Your children. Your health. Your things of enjoyment. You're not computers that you can just roll, 8, 9, 10 hours a day. I'm a licensed therapist as well, so when I was in private practice and dealing with these circumstances, part of that therapeutic is to create a place where your brain can kind of offload the intensity, the anxiety, the nervousness, the uncertainty, with some things that actually create elements of joy and happiness and fulfillment, rest and relaxation. But the tendency for good people, I believe you're good people, we want to be able to solve our problem, and we rally all our resources to be able to solve that problem. And again, please hear me, I'm not saying not to. I mean, if I didn't have a job, my mortgage company would really want me to focus deeply. So that makes sense. All I'm offering, though, is that reminder, that pastoral encouragement. The second law of thermodynamics says that unless an outside force is applied, things turn to disorder. That outside force is your attention that you give to it. And there's one other thing, that if you are a person of faith, we ask and we pray that also is part of what you give attention to. And that second law of thermodynamics says an outside force. And part of the things that we do sometimes, even within our faith, is we white knuckle it. We think we have to say the right prayers, do the right things, go to the right meeting, read the right scripture. We tend to manhandle our faith. And you can't do that. That's the power and the work of the Holy Spirit. And so to invite you into that conversation with that outside force for those who believe in the God of the Bible, that's what the Holy Spirit is there for to do. And sometimes you got to get real honest with that conversation. You're David in a cave saying, I'm ticked off, come on. How come I'm in a cave and they're out celebrating? How come I got laid off? How come I'm in a position and so isn't? So there's an opportunity to vent that anger, because the one thing that you must have when you enter into that outside force of the Holy Spirit is you have to be humble. You have to surrender. You have to say, I can't do this anymore, man. I can't white knuckle this. I can't figure it out. I know if I keep doing it myself, it turns to ruin. What we're saying is that you don't have to. But you got to get honest. And some of you may be in that season where you're just mad, and I get it. Don't be afraid of that. Because that anger turns into surrender when it's handled correctly under the power of our Holy Spirit. So my encouragement to you is to attend to the things that matter in your life, your family, your faith, your friends, your health, your enjoyment. Don't not attend to it because a physical law of nature says it turns to ruin, and it makes sense. I think we can all kind of find personal examples where that happens. That's my encouragement. That's my hope and my prayer. And especially when it comes to your faith, don't try and white knuckle it. Don't try to do it to yourself. Surrender and invite that Holy Spirit to say, I got nothing, and I'm scared to death. I got nothing, and I don't know what's going to happen next month. I got nothing, and I'm walking a wire here. You can handle that. That's where you begin to, I think, find a vision that is larger than the one that is right in front of you. So let me pray. Father God, may your Spirit move in this room today. I don't know where these people are, and it really doesn't matter. It does, but you know what I'm saying, Lord. You are our God. So move in such a way that the words that are spoken this morning resonate deeply within those that are hearing. May you encourage them from the inside out. May you be the outside force that attends to their soul, to their spirit, to their mind, to their body, in such a way that it creates that encouragement, that hope. For Lord, that is what we desire. And what we just passed this last Sunday is you created hope. That because of what you did on that cross, we can have a different tomorrow than a yesterday. We have the hope that is found in you. So Lord, be with all those that are gathered here today. Make this morning a wonderful experience, a healing experience, a healthy and a helpful experience for all who are here. It is in your name I pray. Amen. Guys, thanks for letting me come and chat just a little bit with you, and have a great morning. Thank you.
I've known Foster for a long time. He was my very first friend when I moved to Dallas. He called me up out of nowhere and said, I heard about you. Would you come speak to the group? And it was here. It was here. Yep. And that's how we came to be, and we stayed in touch for lots of years. Things have changed. You know, obviously with the pandemic, I haven't been in this room in about 5-6 years. In fact, it wasn't this room last time I was here. It wasn't this room. Yeah. So he mentioned you, and I can't remember your name. I'm sorry, Trevor. A lot of you that are in recruiting, please connect with me on LinkedIn. Send me a private message. Let's get a call next week. I can refer candidates into you and some information. I love to work my network, and so I'm happy to do that and share whoever I know and help you grow your businesses as well. So I've been in this game a long time, a really long
learned a lot
time.
from this lady.
A long
I can't do
time.
it as good as she can, but I can turn her over and let you guys get a part.
I don't know about that. I don't
Yeah,
know about
all right,
that.
I'm out of here.
All right, thank you for everything.
Thank you.
Thank you, my friend.
Okay.
All right, anybody in the back, if you want a seat, because I always like to bring people in and not have them stand. There's one real close near me here. There's two here. There's one there. If you want to come closer, you're more than welcome. If you want standing room only, that's okay too. Whatever you want to do. There we go.
All right, I think I'll take one of those seats. There's
Yeah,
one
absolutely.
Right in front of me.
Absolutely. Okay, I think we're all pretty much settled here. So this is a hot topic. We have standing room only in here and then some. So very happy to be here. I took a lot of time and energy into this presentation. So fourth quarter of last year, I kept seeing about all this ChatGPT and AI, and I got scared about my job and where it was going and what would happen. And so interestingly enough, there were some courses, and I took them again and again and again. I must have taken them 3 or 4 times fourth quarter. And then I realized there's nothing about this at all on the job search. I looked and looked and looked. There might be a little bit here and there, but not to the depth that I went. So honestly, it was a labor of love. I took all these classes for 3 months, and then I sat and I actually wrote and tested again and again and again the prompts that I'm going to give you at the end of the presentation, which are very powerful. You're more than welcome to take photos of the slides. Now remember, everything I say is date, time, stamp today, because this changes so quickly. You know, this ChatGPT changes so quickly. So anyway, really, it's my offering to all of you.
Elizabeth, pardon the interruption.
Yeah,
I
that's
just
okay.
wanted to let everybody know, we are recording her presentation, and it will be posted up on friscoconnect.org and YouTube. If you missed something and you want to review it, something like that. So I just wanted you to be aware of that.
Great, thank you. And remember, whatever you see today, it's today. There's so much more that comes out. You're welcome to follow me on LinkedIn. A lot of the information on ChatGPT I put out there. I talk about leadership. I'm a coach personally myself. I've been in the recruitment game over 20 years. You know, it's worked out for me. No one's died, no one's cried. It's worked out. Everybody that works for me ends up with more money and pretty happy. So, well, but that's different when you cry. That's a totally different thing when you cry. So anyway, my name's Elizabeth Lyons. I am the author of 3 books. The first one was called Recession Proof Yourself. I've been around so long that people back then, they didn't even publish books at Amazon. I went through a small publisher out of Utah. The second book was called I Quit, Working for You Isn't Working for Me. Some people read it. I'm seeing people shake their head in the audience. Some people might remember me from when I was doing that tour around town. And then the last one is called Hear Us Roar, Unapologetic Women Leading in Corporate America. The irony about that job, I know, woohoo, it's like girl power, but the absolute irony about that book was, one, I never wanted to write it. In the first 2 paragraphs, I talk about how I didn't want to write it. But the irony is, a ton of men bought that book, and it launched 5 minutes before the Me Too movement, believe it or not. So it did really well. But I was surprised, like I thought I wrote a book about women's leadership, and I thought I wrote a book about unity, but everybody that comes in contact with it really likes it. So you might check that out. It's really about office politics, to be honest with you. How do you navigate office politics, male, female, whatever color you are, no matter how old you are or young you are, that book will give you a little bit of wisdom. And, you know, it's written out of my School of Hard Knocks as well. So, all right, oops. So we're going to talk about what ChatGPT is. This is just a broad definition about what it is. I am not an expert by any means. I think I can answer questions at the end to an intelligent amount, but I'm not an expert. I definitely wanted to say that. What I'm giving you is to the current and to the best of my ability. I can't read everything at all times. The big thing that I want to get across from you is how you approach this tool is as good as it will work for you. So it's how you look at it and interface with it and work with it and become friends with it is as good as the information it will give you back, because that's where we're at with it in its inception, because it is still pretty new. We're going to get right to the search, and if you use this tool and you use the prompts, you're absolutely going to get an edge over other people in this room that may not be using it that are in the search as well. And then the other thing that I'm going to give to you, completely free, with all my hard work, is the prompts. So you can literally leave here, go into ChatGPT, type in the prompt, and bloop, you're going to have an answer there. So I've already done all that hard work. This way you're not writing something and go, can you rewrite it again? How about again? How about again? So before I launch into this, how many people here have used ChatGPT in general? Okay, everybody has. So give me some shout outs. What did you use it for? Cover letters? Sorry? Resume? LinkedIn?
Analyzing of the resume.
Analyzing of the resume, okay.
Analyzing the job description.
Job description? Job description. But just besides the search, did you use it? And what did you use it for?
Create schedule for family vacations.
Okay, great. Yeah, really good, really good. I had a friend of mine a couple months ago tell me she used it to get her macro diet. She goes, it was better than my dietitian. I paid her a lot of money. So I was like, I never thought about using it for that. Anything else you've used it for?
Social media.
Wrote a eulogy.
You wrote a eulogy, wow. Did it sound, one second, did it sound,
Yeah, it was great. I took all family stories, little family stories,
oh,
put them all in.
okay, that's the magic. It was how he approached it. So he didn't just say, write me a eulogy, which sounded kind of wordy and maybe a little sterile. He used actual families written, their hearts and minds on the page and said, rewrite this, plug this in. Okay, anybody else?
We wrote a choose your own adventure story with our family.
All right. All right, anybody else?
Somebody said basic research, I've used it for that.
Basic research, yeah, social media posts. Yep. What's that? A workout plan. Yeah, I'm going to get in there for that. I think I want to get in there for that. That would be probably the next step. That's pretty cool. Well, it's a great tool. As we all know, it's a great tool. There's one thing I want to take just a slight detour here for a minute, because the pastor spoke, right, and opened up the meeting. Foster had a couple of great words that I thought were good. But as we're in job search, the one thing I think that is helpful to remember is, who is your source? Right? So when you leave here, or when you get up tomorrow morning and you start the job search, you're going to do to the very best of your ability. But it's not all up to you to go running all over the earth for a little pile of money. So I want to think about that. You know, who is our source? So if we're anchored in source, in whatever way that you want to call that, I just use the word source because I'm trying to be unified in this room. Your source could be God, it could be Jesus, it could be Allah, it could be Buddha, it could be Ma, it could be, you know, whatever that is for you, right? That's your source. But you're still going to be in harmony and do to the best of your ability. And that's really what I found in 20 years of coaching, what got people's time to hire down, to be honest with you. Because I can put a client through my program, and they could follow everything to the letter, and then they don't get a job. And so I get on the phone with them, like, are you doing this? Yes. Are you doing this? Yes. Are you doing this? Yes. Well, there's only one thing left to look at, is what's going on in your mind. So it's really important that you mind your mind during this time and that you don't give in to the fear. Because if you really believe that Source provides for you, there's nothing to be afraid of. There's nothing at all to be afraid of. So it just really moved me when the pastor opened, and I was so tickled when he brought up quantum physics and physics, because a lot of times that's just kind of put to the wayside. I really enjoyed that, and I liked what Pastor said too, but it reminded me about Source. You know, it reminded me about who's really running the show here. So back on the ChatGPT circuit here. So what is this thing, right? And then there's different versions of it, right? There's Bard, there's other versions that are coming up. In my own professional opinion, what I think will happen is there will be other versions that will come up, but eventually in about 5 years, it'll boil down to 1 or 2. And that'll be it. And I think in 5 years, we'll probably end up paying for it. Right now, you don't have to pay. You can pay for the souped up version, but you don't have to. You can certainly get in there. It's hard to say who's going to be running to the finish line to have the best whiz bang, whatever it is. But basically, what is this thing? It's not a robot. It's not some automated thing that gives us the information. It is programmed in. It pulls from text, articles, and content of what's online. And so some of that can be a little crazy. As a client said to me yesterday, she said, think about all the garbage there is online and all the crazy stuff that's made up. And so that's part that can get recycled and dumped into there. So I always say, and I'll say it later in the presentation, you want to verify, verify, verify. But what is it? Very simply, that's what it is. So here's some very, very interesting facts about ChatGPT. So let me tell you how this slide came to be. So I took all these classes, right? October, November, December, and I took all these copious notes, and I was like, well, there's nothing in here with what I do for a living with coaching or placing people in jobs, so let me write something about that. And I just had this very strong feeling people were not using it. And I had this very strong feeling that people from 40 to 60, and the older they got, the less they used it. And so I went to my husband and I said, I just have this weird feeling, and I need some data around it. And then I started asking people, because that's usually my good proof source is I don't like to read data as much as I like to walk around and talk to all you and go, hey, are you using it? Do you like it? How? No. So as I was writing the presentation, I found this data. And oddly enough, our country in India uses it the most. The rest of the world is not using it nearly as much or even exposed to it. Only 24% of Americans have never used it. And then look at this breakdown. It's pretty interesting. 18 to 34 uses it the most, which it makes sense. They grew up with phones in their hands, technology, et cetera. 60% of users are under 34. And then it was exactly what I had predicted and saw and felt was 45 to 54 drops way down to 9%. 54 to 64, 5.34%. Over 65, it drops again to like 3%. The most interesting thing is people get on it and bounce right off. They don't hang there. And I'll tell you why, because unless you understand how to interface with it, it doesn't do great. It just doesn't do great. So here's very simply some do and don'ts. So when you interface with it, you have to be very, very specific. And if when you go to interface with it, you think of it as a person, as your personal assistant. So let me give you an example. If I had a personal assistant and I said to her, I'm going to fly to Boulder in a couple weeks, book me the ticket, what would she say? Well, when do you want to be in? Well, what day do you want to go in? Well, when do you want to come home? Well, which airline do you prefer to fly on? Because some of them, the doors just pop right off the plane. So I'm not sure which airline you want to be on, Elizabeth. She or he would fire back 100 questions at me, right? And me being the executive, I would just be like, just do it. And there would be 10,000 questions come back. It's the same thing. It's the same way. If you interface with it and you say, tell me if this resume is any good, they'll go, yeah, it's good. You'll be like, rewrite this paragraph so it does it once. But if you say to it, rewrite this paragraph so that job seekers will understand it, and they're within the industries of financial services and technology and banking, write it like that, then it writes it, and you're like, well, write it again, but write it in 3 lines. We'll write it again, but write it in a more professional and yet friendly tone. Do you see what I've done? That's how you interface with it. But if you can come right out of the gate with, this is what I want, do it exactly like this, it will give you that. Then you can refine from there. And that's really the marrow of it in terms of really getting what you want out of it and really kind of enjoying it. You can use it for all sorts of things. We covered that in the beginning, right? Some people are using it for family vacations, diets, eulogies. I mean, you can use it for all kinds of things. We often don't think to go there. And then you can always ask, is there another way? Hey, this tagline for LinkedIn is really great. Can you give me 5 more? it will spit out 5 more. And you can do that 3-4 times. Or refine that. I like that. Can you just omit this word in the tagline and replace it with something else? You can do that kind of a thing. So the big problem with it, or the way that we interface with it, particularly if you're 40 plus, is we like to get in there and think it's Google. And that is hugely dismal mistake. It will not work. It will not work. So because it just doesn't, the tool does not respond in that way. And so that's the biggest thing when you leave this room, if you want to mess with it with the job search, you have to unthink Google. And if you're anything like me, it took me many tries to unthink Google until I could really get it and master it and then write the prompts that I'll show you at the end. Give yourself time with it. That was the other thing. I wanted to be like Google, and I could just jump in there on my phone, get my answers, find 5 sources, repackage the information or understand what I needed to know and move on from there. I tried to do that with this tool. I was extremely frustrated. And then I realized it's me. I have to dedicate some time and just sit and just shut everything out. And so I promised myself, I was like, just give it a half hour. If you still hate it, you can hate it, but just try for a half hour. But that whole piece about it's not Google is gold. Like, I wish somebody had told me that, because I wouldn't have been frustrated. I probably wouldn't have to spend a half hour. So that's a big piece of it. It's just like anything else in your life. How you approach it is what you're going to get out of it, right? So like if you are driving down the highway and when I was a kid, when you're looking for Volkswagen bugs, all of a sudden they're everywhere. Remember that game, Slug Bug? They're everywhere. They're everywhere. But if you're not looking for them, they're not looking for them. So there is a scientific fact in there in how you set up the experience or the experiment is how it's going to come back. And scientists know that, because then they will alter. They'll be like, oh, maybe this data is a little wonky because I didn't do this or that. Or maybe I should pull this out and try it again. Anything in life is like that. So how you approach it. The job search is no different. Again, long time doing this. How you approach it. When you sit down for your job search, how you feeling? You know, how you feeling? I mean, are you motivated? Do you believe it'll happen? Are you begrudgingly sitting in front of the computer being like, oh my God, I just want this over with. How do I get this done? There is that part of the search where we hit that piece emotionally, right? It will respond to you in the same way. Someday, probably in the not so distant future, they will talk about what I already know, experientially know, that we are our own virtual reality machines. And that the glasses that we wear every day, all day long, absolutely color our experience. And that really, everything is fine. It's how we respond to it. Everything is fine. You couldn't be in this room if it wasn't on purpose and possible. You wouldn't be here. What's happening is what is. It's what is. So, okay, I'm out of a job. What am I going to do next? Get a plan, move forward. Try to have it with a good attitude, try to have it with a good heart. And then all of a sudden, oh, there's a posting. Oh, on my networking list, I had listed this company. I just sat in a meeting. The person next to me did an interview there last week. Or the person next to me came out of there, was laid off. They said it was a horrible culture. I thought it was a good culture. This is good information for me to know in my search. So the job search, if you embrace it, it's ego shattering, and it could be an opening. It could be an opening to meet people, to discover things, to grow within ourselves, or it can be this real tight, limiting, terrible scrapping around for the next bit of money. And it's up to you. Your experience is up to you. And here's the last piece I'll give you. That little scrap of money you're trying to get, you think it's going to make you happy. You think it's going to make you happy. So, how do we use this thing for the job search? There's tons of ways. I'm really grateful you didn't all list them all, or I wouldn't have much to talk about up here. But company research is a great way. Interview prep. Interview prep's a great way. I've asked clients, I used it for interview prep. Did it work? Yeah, it gave me 5 questions they would ask me, and 3 of the 5 it gave me. Okay, great. Resume polish. Now, I want to pause on that for a second. Just so that you know, we know when all y'all run it through ChatGPT. We know. Because nobody talks in that flamboyant of a word. You're not like the most, like your headline's like, I'm the most gorgeous, competent, tall, competent, fabulous candidate ever. Like we know, like no human talks like that. We know that. But here's the thing. It gives me a lot of peace of mind and a lot of confidence every day that I get up and I look at talent. You could have run that thing to ChatGPT or Bard, and I might have bought it hook, line, and sinker. And when I get you on the phone in the first 10 minutes, it's going to fall apart rapidly. Absolutely. So I don't care. Especially a kind of an old dog like Foster and I. Like we've heard, it's like tens of thousands, millions of conversations. We've heard it all. Like really, there's not much new that you could say that's going to wow me at this point. But I'm going to know that the resume and the LinkedIn doesn't match what's in front of me. So just think about that while you're whiz-banging in the ChatGPT. It's like anything else. Like when you lie to mom and dad, they're gonna find out. They're gonna find out. It's the same with the CEO. When you fudge the numbers, you keep going to the meetings, you keep like spinning that PowerPoint slide. I've been in companies like that. I'm like, why don't you just tell mom and dad they're gonna find out at fourth quarter that we didn't make the sale and not getting $6 million. Why don't we just tell them? It's like, they're really going to be mad in December when they don't have the $6 million. Same thing. So be authentic, use it as a tool, but try to have authenticity in there. Salary negotiation. Ooh, this was a hot topic when I delivered this at Jeff Morris's group in January. Ooh, this was like the hot topic. Professional development, and then thank you notes. So here are the prompts. We're going to roll right into the prompts here. Here are the prompts that I wrote for resumes that you could use. You want to take a shot at the screen slide, you're more than welcome. You could say to it, analyze the keywords in a job post and see how my resume matches. Now, I've written these and tested them again and again and again and again and again. So this will work. This will get you from point A to point B. Rewrite to maximize the keywords in the job posting. This is my personal favorite. Act as if you're an ATS and review my resume to this job post. Write a resume. It's got to be 2 pages. Use an active voice and highlight my accomplishments. Okay, my soapbox on the ATS. Foster's heard this a lot of times. And he laughs. He knows he's heard this a ton of times. So, spoiler alert, there is no ATS that decides if you're good or bad. It's a person. Is a person. Yep. Like me. It's a person. It's me going, decline, 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 decline. Oh, I'll call you. I got time 9 o'clock on Thursday. Do you want to have a chat? There is no wizard ATS that just decides your fate. That's not what happens. I don't know who started that 15 years ago, but it's not true. So you're not going to get in front of the ATS and got my whiz-bang words. No. So number 1, you've got to be qualified for the job. Okay? So here's the talk around that. It's very simple. It's so simple, you won't do it. It's so flippin' simple, you'll leave this room and still be unemployed. Stop it. Okay, so there's this great posting, and it's this great job, and you're just like, oh, yes, it's a great culture. It's like this job for me. Don't read that. First of all, don't read that. Go all the way down the qualifications. Go all the way down the qualifications. Now, since COVID, they have rewritten it. They actually have thrown out education. Years ago, it was like, must have bachelor's degree in this, that, or the other thing. They've thrown that out, and they should. So it will usually start with 10 years of experience in banking and financial, or 10 to 15 years experience in IT. It'll be a general statement which you'll be able to do. Then the next section, it's going to be more specific, like 5+ years in systems, right? And then the next bullet will say something maybe about analysis or a specific tool. 2+ years in automation experience, including Python and Shell. Usually that's a desired, but I threw that in to kind of trip you up. Just go to the qualifications and make sure that you have them, number one, because that's what gets you caught in decline, 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 and make it very clear for the reader, because this argument that happens when people call me up and they're like, well, you declined me. I'm like, well, how was I to know that you're even qualified? Have you read your own resume? You are so caught up in who I am and what I'm doing and how I've been that you can't even see there's a person on the other end reading it. Simplest thing, you'll walk out that door and won't do it. Don't get mad at us. Here's the other thing. Don't get mad at us. We only know what you tell us. We only know what you tell us on the resume. Man, you guys have like the look of shame on your faces. And I mean, I'm all of a sudden thinking, oh man, it's like, what's that picture of that monkey where he's like looking off to the side? You know that meme? That's what y'all look like right now. I'm not trying to shame you, but I want to slow you down and have you think about the process. You're in a process. You're in a process. And the biggest thing I really, really, really want to get you into is unity thinking. I want to get you into collaboration and unity thinking. This isn't a battle. You're not like with your gun and your badge and your shield and everything else going into the job. No, I want all that to go away because that is a problem. That's going to stop you from getting hired, you know? So what I'm trying to bring you into is unity thinking, that there's a person that you don't know that probably has kids and a dog that threw up that morning, and he or she just wants to get their coffee and get to work, and you know, they got doctor's appointments and they're late logging in. It's a person just like you. Just like you. They're no different than you. So think about that when you apply. Oh, what would I want this person to know about me? Let me look at the qualifications. Oh, look at this. I got some of the desired. Put that at the top. So I did this 200 people on a Zoom the other day with Dallas Women the Code. And they were really mad that they couldn't write 10-page resumes anymore because I told them that was unnecessary. It's not really that funny when you're me, because I only go 2 pages and I'm so ticked that you're 10 that I just go, I'm only reading 2. I don't care what you got to say. It's going to be in 2. So really, just keep it to 2. If you're an executive, okay, you got to go to 3. I get it. Please don't put it in 0.6 font or 8. You know, there's a person on the other end. There's a person on the other end. And then you're mad at us. You own some responsibility in your engagement. That's what needs to be cleaned up, the engagement here. So consider that when you're writing that resume. Make it really clean for us. Make it really, really clean and clear for us. And you'll get the call. You'll get more calls than not. That I promise you. That I absolutely promise you. Interview prompts. Here's some that you can use. You're going to have the interview. You got the call. You realize it's a person like me reading it. You let go of the ATS as your monster. You're in the collaboration space, right? You're in the openness. You're in the unity space. You get the call. Look at that. What Lion said worked. Look at that. That's amazing. So I got to prep for the interview. Okay. So what are the most common interviews that CFO could ask me? What are the most common interview questions that this person can ask me? So when you get your interview, they're going to tell you you're going to meet with, you know, Todd Day, who's a financial analyst. He's a collaborator. He may not be a decision maker, but he's going to ask you obviously some questions. So what kind of questions could he ask you, right? So look at all their titles and run it through here. What's the common questions that they might ask you for this title that I'm going to interview for? What are the 5 most common questions just for this title that they might ask? Now, the research I did, that was like 3 out of the 5 were correct out of ChatGPT. They did get asked that. And then who might interview me? This is an example. If I'm an accountant, who could be on my interview panel? And then what else should I ask? So the reason this is important and it looks different is, you know, when you all prep for interview, you're still in that box of what am I going to say, and am I going to say it right, and they need to know this about me. You got to open it. If you really want to get through the interview, like, who are they? What's their framework? What could they ask me? Because that's more true north. That's a little bit more true north. Especially now, because there's some companies that actually have interview guides that are scripted. They don't get to go ask you everything due to the laws and everything else. Somebody like me goes, and here you go. And they go, well, I don't want. I'm like, I don't care what you want. This is what legal says. This is what I say. You're going to have a feedback tab in Workday. Write your comments there, but don't write too many comments, but don't write no comments either, because then I'm going to kick it back, and then the auditors can see that I kicked it back. And you should see the conversations I have with vice presidents every day, all day long. That's what it looks like. On this side of the desk, that's what it looks like. Salary prompts. This one's pretty good. This one in Jeff's group got a little bit dicey because they're like, how do you know? And are you sure? And will it be within? I'm like, it's going to be within, every job spread is within 20 or 30 grand. Yeah, you're going to be in there, and that's all you want to know. You know you were paid so much. This title bracket pays so much. Then it becomes, where is it? Is it a large publicly traded company? Is it a small private company? Is it a tech company? They all will have slightly different variations in how they pay and how they compensate, including bonuses. So that's when you start to ask the salary questions. You'll go, well, what would be the salary range for this and this and this? Because you have an interview there. So Texas is one of the states where we can still legally ask you what you make and what you'd like to make, although usually we mind our manners and we don't ask that. And here's the thing. The only reason we ask that is we usually, honestly, totally, it's us. We're afraid that we can't meet your compensation requirements, and so we just want to know that we're close. It's not really about judging you or thinking that you're due more or less, right? So that's something to consider. Chances are you won't, but as you're going through this process, you're going to want to understand, what would the job pay? Basically, what would it pay? And that's important for negotiation and so forth. Now, a tip on that, we're not seeing the big increases that we saw in the pandemic at all. People that went out of the job market in the pandemic that made $20,000 to $40,000 more, $20,000 to $50,000 more, I can tell you very confidently those days are over. I can tell you very confidently. So, but whatever you made in the pandemic, that's still a viable number. So you're not going to have to take less, but you got to know what that number is. But you don't want to, you don't want to go into those conversations with thinking that it's going to be what you make plus another big increase. It's highly unlikely. It's highly unlikely for a lot of reasons. So the thing that you don't know that I will tip here is corporate America still can't figure out what things cost because it was so inflated and so crazy. And then we had inflation, and then we had the supply chain issue, and now we got this crazy presidency thing happening. So corporate America all last year was like, what do I pay a business analyst? Because I don't even know. I don't think it's $109,000, but it's definitely not what I was paying, which was $70,000. But what the hell is it anyway? They don't know. And they're still trying to figure it out. But they cannot take the money back due to inflation and their own inflation in their own companies. Because, their light bill went up too, right? Their gas bill went up too. They're just like us. So when you go in and negotiate, I just want you to kind of level set there and understand the totality of that game. So development prompts, these are great questions because when you're in the interview, you can ask them hey, do you have continuing education money available? If you're in technology, they will often give between $2,000 and $5,000 a year every year for you to get a certification. So if you're in, say, cybersecurity and you want to get your CISSP, or your network, you want to get your CCNA, or your project manager and you want to get your PMP or even go after your MBA, they will often pay for that. So you might want to know what the heck you would want going in there from a development plan in the interview, and then at second interview or third, you can ask them do you have this kind of a perk? Thank you notes. Thank you notes. Okay, Foster, this is another one of my soapboxes, so I need you you've heard this from me 100 times, so I just need you to bear with me, friend. I got to do it again.
That was soapboxes, huh?
Yeah, I got to do it again. On what is a thank you note? You know how I feel about Oh, yeah. So, a thank you note should be just that. Thank you note should be thank you. I don't ever get them. Here's what I get. Dear Elizabeth, thank you so much for your time on Thursday with the interview and then for scheduling with the hiring manager. I want to remind you of my great skill set. I want to remind you of my great skill set and how I would be a fabulous addition to the team. I am so excited to work for your company. Do you think I'm stupid and I don't remember your skill set? I looked through 100 resumes. I pulled 10. Of the 10, I interviewed 5. Of those 5, we decided 3 were going to the hiring manager and their team. What about this is gratitude? What about this is gratitude? Did you thank me at all? Was there any feeling in your physical body about you thanking me? Was I a person? Or just another admin function for you? Another robot, another ATS off my desk. I gotta bring you into unity. Or your other option is to suffer and not get employed fast and to kick around and hate the process and watch your bank account drain. These are your options. Now, the unity thing's a little harder, I get that, but it's really important. And so when you write a thank you note, and if you don't know how to write them, here's some great ideas. Write a thank you note expressing gratitude for the interview, not a throwing up of my skill set, not a reminder to the recruiter, because I'm pretty sure she knows who I am. Concise. Write it within 2 lines. My favorite that I wrote for you and tested and tested and tested. Act as if you're receiving the thank you note from an applicant like me. How would you write it to express sincerity? Because y'all can't do it. Y'all can't do it. So you may as well jot this down, because what it's going to strip out is the I. The I, me, mine is the problem. The I, me, mine is the problem. What we want is us, we, team. She's shaking her head. She definitely feels me. What we want is us, we, team. Can we get there? I think you guys are buying it now. The sports guys, they're all over it. They're like, yeah, it's like football. That's what we want. That's what we want. If you're in the job search and you're in that, you're going to get further. First of all, it's going to keep that fear monger away, which just makes your stomach hurt and your head race. You're up at 2 a.m. staring at the ceiling. You know how I know this? Because I've done this. You know why I do this work? Because I have the biggest heart and the biggest compassion for just this. For everybody in this room, huge amounts of compassion, because, oh boy, there for the grace of God was me again and again and again until I figured out the stuff that I'm showing you this morning, honestly. So us, we, team. You go into the interview, us, we, team. How can I help us, we, team? We go into the resume, us, we, team. It's not an ATS. Forget it. Forget it. Forget the ATS. We go into the thank you note, us, we, team. And if they don't want you, don't you worry about it. Don't you worry about a thing. If they reject you, don't you worry about a thing. You're just going to keep going. Because it's like a plate, and it's like an offering. And you're like, do you want it? And they're like, no, thank you. You're like, that's fine. Do you want it? I don't want it. No, thank you. That's what you're going to do. It's an offering. It's an offering. It's an offering. It's the one serving the one. It's an offering. That's all it is. It's just an easier ride. If you don't like any of this, try it a little bit, because it's just an easier ride. It's just going to stop all this in the head. So try that. Try that. Where are we going with this AI thing? No one knows. So this is just a slide of what I picked up 3 months ago. It keeps changing every day. If you join me on LinkedIn, I find these little snippets on AI. I'm just like you. I can't be everywhere at all times. But what I find is good sources, right? It's not a news media outlet, and they're pretty good sources that you can find. But this is written a couple months ago. So they are looking at it in talent acquisition. They definitely are looking at ethical considerations with it. Here's my concern with it, with my line of work. I get scared that they're going to make me call so many candidates, that I will get up in the morning and I will log in and they will say, Elizabeth, this is a diverse slate. You have to call these 10 candidates first. And AI is going to come and just dump it on my desk. And I'm not going to be able to use all of my years of doing this and discernment intuition and all this stuff that I have. That's my biggest concern in recruitment. Now, the other side, you could say, well, it's going to be a diverse slate, and that is good. I mean, I agree with that. What I'm hoping it's an augment to my already done process. That's what I'm hoping. That all y'all still apply, and so I can still go through that and pick that, and then if the company's like, and you have to do this, then I will do that as well. That's my concern with recruiting and where it's going. Now, it may end up being my best friend. If it's going to give me a slate of 5 people that are passive candidates, I definitely want to call them. So that might be good for me, but that's where I get concerned about it. Very few people know this. I'll share this. Workday is the common tool now. So when you apply, 99% of the time it's going to be Workday, which is a one-click resume done. We love it on our end. It's a very simple system. They actually have an AI function. Before we even talked about AI 7 years ago, it's a tool called Phenom, and it lays on top of Workday. It's not a separate place you go and log in. It lays on top of the database, and on the left there's a column, and I can sort it right down to this zip code within 5 miles, this skill set, this skill set. You know, you can really go through tens of thousands of resumes. If you're in a large enterprise company, it's fantastic. And there was this one time, they were like, find me somebody with Snowflake. And they're like, oh, and by the way, you won't. And I'm like, why do you, okay, whatever, we're gonna play this game, great. So I go off to my desk and I go, Phenom, and it was like, there are 50 people out of, 10 million people in the database that had Snowflake on the resume. I'm like, okay, show me those. They show me those. I'm like, all right, so give it to me within this town, within this many miles. And it was like, there's 10. And I'm like, and I did it again. It was like, there's 5. And I reached out to all 5, and I got 2 of the 5. So it's a fantastic tool, but it depends what they're gonna do with the laws and how they're gonna end up this whole thing working. They are looking at it for onboarding processes, offboarding processes. That's where you're gonna see it. You're gonna see it in recruitment. What it looks like a year from now, I don't know. Nobody knows. What it looks like 5 years from now will be vastly different again. What I can tell you about AI is it's exactly like sugar. It's in everything and you don't know it. And they're not telling us. They're not telling us. Do you remember the days where you could buy a bottle of ketchup and nobody read the back of it? The second ingredient was like tomatoes and sugar, right? Now you got to buy ketchup, sugar-free ketchup. You're like, what happened in the world? This is so weird. So it's exactly like that, though. I'm telling you the honest to God truth. If you really like open your eyes and everywhere you go, particularly your doctor's office, that's where it's really going on. It's embedded in places. It's embedded in places, and they're not telling us, and we don't know. The interesting story to verify that point. My husband had major back surgery, major. Like he's got a whole ladder in his back now. We got him through that. That was a rough moment. We got him through that. And he's got shooting nerve pain down the leg. And that's not great at all, because now it's just another horrible way to be in pain. And so he says, they're gonna shoot me up with a steroid. I need you to take me. And I didn't mean to be unkind, but I've been through a lot of doctor's offices, and I was like, I kind of want to log in tomorrow. Why do I have to take you? And he's like, well, they're gonna put me under. And I'm like, what? Now I think you're confused, because if they're giving you a steroid shot, they just nail you and you walk out the door, and everything's good in about 7 to 10 days. What are we doing here? And he goes, I don't really know. And I'm like, this whole thing is making me uncomfortable. And the thing with Steve is he's got a scientist mind. So heaven help us. He found the live video of somebody doing the back surgery on YouTube and watched it over and over again. And he was like, oh, it's totally cool. They're just going to do this. Meanwhile, I'm like, But him and I are a really good team in the doctor's office. So he goes in and he's like, I got this pre-thing I have to do. And so he comes home from that. We're going to go the next week. And he goes, do you know what they did? And I said, what? And he goes, they like mapped my whole area. They were like, I'm like, the pain is here and it shoots there. And they're like, so they mapped this area. That was AI. And then what they do is they knock me out completely because they go into the direct nerve. Think about how many nerves are in your body. They can hit the direct nerve with the steroid and it all goes away. I'm like, they're not saturating the whole body. He's like, yeah, they find that ineffective now. I'm like, are you serious? He's like, yeah. So guy goes under, They they do the same, they know where it is, they map him again on the table, he's out, they go right to the nerve, pain goes away. Pain goes away. Hospitals have robots delivering medication now. There's a couple of them in the US. You know, it's in healthcare, it's absolutely in there. And yeah, restaurants are a big one too. So.
How they put Steve under, so he wouldn't be sitting there telling them how to do it.
So they love him, Foster. They love him. Like the nurses love him. When they go to draw his blood, he's like, how does this work? Show me how the whole thing, like I know the blood comes out, but I want to talk about the mechanics of and I'm like, oh my God. And they just love him. I mean, I don't have that personality at all in the doctor's office, but I'm like the lawyer. I ask these questions that they could like get sued and go to jail. So they'll interface with me. Like it works out with Steve and I in the room. I'm like, but wait, you're doing that? Why? Why? And how come? Does insurance pay for this? Did you say that you bought a vacation home and your kid's going to college? Did I hear you say that in conversation a minute ago? Okay, are you billing or are you healing him? I just want to understand. Just want to seeking to understand. So it's in your medical. It's in a lot of places. And if you start to look around and get real quiet and real still, you're going to see it. And they're not telling us that, I can tell you for a fact. So a word on coaching, then we'll wrap it up. I'll take any questions. Don't go it alone. If you need a coach, you need a coach. A lot of people don't need a coach. A lot of people do need a coach, don't think they need a coach. So don't go it alone. If you've got questions about your resume, your job search, you're unsuccessful, you are more than welcome to reach out to me personally on LinkedIn. We can schedule 15 minutes. I'm more than happy to answer any questions that you have. Coaching is for people that want to shorten their time to hire. They need the interview prep at a deeper level. They don't understand the market. They don't understand why they're not getting there faster. It's a partnership. It's 100% an investment. And most investments like that are very good and they pay dividends. So if you want to consider a coach, I'm more than happy to help you. And I don't take everybody, but I have other coaches that I work with and I refer business that way too. So because sometimes my program isn't right or they don't need it. Most of the people that take me up on this, that call me, I'll book, like, if there's 200 people in the room, I'll book 10 or 15 calls. And then, I mean, most of them, I can answer a question, send you away, and you'll land. And I'm more than happy to do that. I mean, it's all goodwill, and there's no reason. And I'm not going to charge money for no reason. That doesn't make any sense to me. So think about it. You're only going to get so far here or going to these groups. You might only get so far, and you just need that next little thing to get you there. You know, and this is a place where you could actually probably land quicker and with more money. So let me answer any questions that you might have. Go ahead.
All right, thanks, John and Elizabeth.
Yeah.
And so this may be an unfair question since you said you weren't an expert, but you piqued my interest when you said you could, search for interview questions. I've been with the pit crew for many years, and we, in the old days, we would tell people, go on Google and find out what they're going to ask you.
Yeah.
So now my question is, in the new world, if I go to Chat GPT,
Yes, sir.
what do I get that I couldn't get in the past?
Yeah, so I think it's more concise, and I think that it will spider out to everywhere and then give you 4 or 5, where if you did a Google search, it's subjective to the content of the writer. You could end up with 10 articles like that. I think it's going to be a little more concise, but the proof that I found was it was accurate. That's where I had a little bit of comfort in it. So when ChatGPT said, here's the 5 questions they're going to ask you, and my clients that were in my coaching practice came back and said they asked 3 of those questions, they asked 4 of those questions. That gave me some good feeling of, okay, the tool is pretty accurate. And I love the pit crew. I've been kicking around long enough. I think they do the most phenomenal service and work. And so I totally feel you when you're like, back in the day, this is what we did. How does this change how we're teaching and mentoring? So I appreciate that question quite a bit.
Thanks.
Go ahead.
Okay, earlier you said that with the thank you note, be sincere.
Yeah.
But I remember clearly reading other coaches saying, this is your chance to finish the sale.
Yeah.
So what changed?
Yeah, well, what changed is all those coaches didn't do the job for 20 years and read 10,000 of the thankless thank you notes and, shared the opinions with all the other ones. The problems with the other coaches, or not problem, but where you're taking your input, you want to see where it's coming from. What's their framework? What's their orientation? Where are they coming from? I mean, I can very distinctly tell you what's different about me. I didn't go into coaching. I didn't go through IFC and all this other sort of stuff. I was a coach before there were coaches. What I can tell you is every day, all day long, I'm in an ATS. I'm a person in an ATS, and I am picking that candidate slate, and I am giving the recommendation why she gets the interview over him with the vice president. And then I know the feedback on her and why she moved forward or not. And I tell you, the other coaches out there aren't in the game. I'm like in the trenches. I'm the left tackle every day, all day long. And then I'm also the one that's getting the thankless thank you note. I like that, the thankless thank you note. So what's changed is that, and there is a moment of like, it's humanity. Ultimately, it's like, did you think I didn't listen? Here's what I went through at Jeff's group. I'm like, this is a fair question to all of you. Why is there this perpetual need in you to do that to me? Why do you feel the need in your thank you note to do that? Even if another coach told you that, why would you really look at why are you doing what you're doing? And have some accountability for that, and then don't get mad when the response isn't, like, you're welcome. So, and if you don't know, then I'll tell you. You do that because you're afraid, right? You do that because you think I don't remember you. But most of all, you do it afraid because you think, then she'll remember me, then I'll have this other edge. But there's nothing there. It's not a thank you. Then let's not call it thank you notes. I'll take another spin on this. Let's not call it thank you notes. Let's call it a regurgitation of my skill sets to remind you. Because that's what it is.
The key word is regurgitation.
Yeah. And we can put in parentheses because I'm afraid. Or because I've been unemployed for 6 months. We can put that in parentheses. Let's call it what it is. Let's look at what we're looking at. Really look at what we're looking at and look at what we're doing. We're going to engage in the process. How can I do it in a way? So, my mom had this expression about if everybody jumped off the bridge. Do you remember that? So I don't know. You could go with the other coaches. I'm all right with that. But that's my take on it. Go ahead.
One last quick question. I don't want to harp on this whole thank you.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
But I don't need that.
Okay. All right. I just had a question. Obviously, it's important that you say thank you. I mean, if you have an interview, somebody takes the time, thank you.
Yeah.
But they don't have to do a dissertation, obviously.
No.
But I like the point of just maybe one little key fact that was critical in the conversation. Is that acceptable? I mean, it needs to be a genuine thank you.
But it's still about you. And what I'm trying to route out with the biggest pitchfork is you and bring it into us, we team. Even one sentence of, it's still about you. It's not about gratitude. Forget me, because y'all don't like me now, and that's fine. That's cool.
Yeah,
that's cool.
forget it.
Yeah, forget it. But it's not about gratitude, right? It's not about gratitude.
So it's important really just to say thank you, and.
Yeah, you could say something like thank you, and you could close with a great sales tactic is please let me know where I'm at in the process. So now you did a to-do and an action back to them. Or tell them, I'm in an interview with other companies. You're my first choice. Please let me know where I'm at in the process. Thank you very much for your time.
Okay.
I strike good relationships with the candidates I work with, and so I don't have too much problem with if they're in other searches. I try to really be mindful of that because I know I'm not the only game in town. But the thank you note is really just thank you. Yeah.
So I'm the leader of the Dallas Pit Crew, and I think one of your previous slides was really important because you talked about the ages of who uses it.
Yeah.
I think when you're researching who you're going to interview, you need to keep that slide in mind. Every time I'm going to do an interview with someone, I go look for questions.
Yeah.
As an experienced interviewer and one that's 65, not afraid to say it,
Right.
I use maybe 1/10 of them.
Yep.
So I think you need to be careful of just assuming that all interviewers are going to do that because based upon their experience and their age, they may use their own from that perspective. So I would just
No, I think you're right.
throw that word of caution.
No, I think you're right. The one, and we actually talked about this twice in the presentation, and what I said was framework. You need to think about the framework that the person's coming to you, in those questions, right? Because the CFO is going to be different than the financial analyst, that might be different than the operations person, right? And I think that's a very good point. When a boomer came up, different. And what they look for is work ethic, and there's some very key things that they're looking for there that are important. And then if you're a Gen Y, if you're 30-something in interviewing and you're on the interview panel, that's going to be a different line of questioning as well. So I think you're right. Anything else? There's one right by you.
I'm seeing something that is, I think, becoming a trend that I'm not hearing anything about, and it's on the topic of thank you letters. So
It's hot topic this fall.
a year ago, I interviewed with a global company, and it had started in another country. And so I get the invite. It's a Teams invite, but it does not have like where you can respond all and get the other people's names.
Right.
There's no names on it at all. So I went back to the person that sent it to me from HR and said, do you have an email address? I'd like to send
Yeah.
a thank you. And they're like, that's not our culture. We don't allow that. You can send it to me and I'll forward it on.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So then just last 2 weeks ago or so, same type thing happened. This is a local company that is large across the United States and Canada. And so I went back to the HR person and said, okay, so what is your policy on thank you letters? And he said, oh, you have to send it directly to me. And he said, I learned a long time ago when I had a candidate that was a shoo-in to get a job. And he wrote out this lovely letter, but he sent it to them and it was addressing a different company. And he said, so I always have them come back to me directly, and I proofread it, and I'll go back and ask questions if there's something in there that is totally off kilter. So I ended up doing the same type thing and sending it to him and addressing this person that interviewed me.
Yeah.
So is that something that's a norm?
Well, how many times we turn on the news and there's a shooting right in the building? It's a security measure, period. It's a security measure. And I love it when they're like, can you give me the name of the hiring manager? I'm like, nope, not till you go to interview. I won't even disclose that, So it's, a lot of it's a security measure. And he's reading it. I don't read it. If you write the thankless thank you note, I just forward it on. I'm good with that. I'm fine. It's your representation. I'm not going to have it buried on my desk. And then there's always the thing of it never would happen, but what if the candidate's like, hey, did you get my thank you note, my regurgitation of my skills? Like, well, no, Elizabeth didn't deliver that to me. So I don't do that. I just forward them on. But it's a security measure. I have candidates, I work in cybersecurity, and so I just tell them, no, you're totally good. I promise they'll get it. Just send it to me. And so don't be worried about that or feeling like they're they're reading it somewhat, but.
Elizabeth, thank you so much for your presentation.
Sure.
I want to switch gears a little and talk about follow-ups. From a recruiter's point of view, what do you prefer from a qualified candidate? So let's say I've already fully digested the job description. I know I'm totally qualified for it. It's not a bogus application.
Mm-hmm.
I've submitted my application. I've gotten an internal referral. I've done all the steps. what do you want from us as follow-up to you if I know that you're the assigned recruiter? And how do I use ChatGPT for writing those?
I want exactly what you did. She said, Elizabeth, how do you want me to follow up? That's all I want.
So that's the message in LinkedIn as a message to you?
Hey, yeah, not in LinkedIn, better in my email, because I may or may not pop into LinkedIn. In fact, I don't use LinkedIn for recruiting at all. So if your intention is to join me on LinkedIn, then I'm going to remember you and put you in, forget it. It's all about my coaching, my books. It's all me. My LinkedIn has never once been tied to my employer, never will be, never, never. So, but they often don't look in there. Some of them are in there 24/7 and some of them aren't. Email it and literally say, I'm sure you're interviewing lots of candidates. What's the best way I can follow up with you?
But I don't have your email address.
Then do it in LinkedIn. What's the best way I can follow up with you? You might give them some choices. Can I call you?
Right.
Can I email you? Can I email you in a week? What works for you? And then I used that many times when I was in job search. They never get asked that and they loved it. And I would say, I don't want to drive you nuts, but I want to know where I'm at in the process because I'm getting other interviews. What works for you? Did you hear that? Us, we team. See, all the sports guys, I know the sports guys because they're all shaking their head. The sports guys are shaking their, it's us, we team. What works for you, you know? And that's would be, that's a great day if I ever saw that.
But can I just?
Yeah, absolutely.
Sorry. So again, you know, if I don't know who the recruiter is, and I've gotten all the way through and I've got, okay, this is the perfect one, I've submitted it, I've done all the stuff. I've submitted it on, I get the blanket do not reply. We've received your application.
Right.
Great. Now I'm going back into LinkedIn, I'm researching who the recruiters
Oh,
are, and I'm
okay.
going in and I'm saying, okay, there's 20 recruiters listed for this
Right.
global company. I'm going to take a guess and it's Elizabeth here.
Right.
And I send a private message or I send to connect. And I say, hey, I've applied for this job, here's the rec number, blah, blah, blah.
No, yeah, stop. Here, I've applied to this job. Here's the rec number. Would you please help me out and give me some visibility on my resume? You did not ask for the interview. You did not ask for the phone screen. You did not ask for the person's name. Would you please help me get some visibility and have my application read? Anybody will do that. I'll do that.
And even better if you're connected to somebody that knows that person has a relationship with that person. Guys, we need to take the time to think some of these things out, especially when you see a job that you know you're a good fit for and you are excited about. We need to put those extra steps in there. Okay, I'm going to shut up.
No. Keep going. You were fine. No. I just wanted to make sure I'm good on my end. You were fine. Keep going.
That was it.
Oh, that was it?
That's what networking's for.
Yeah, networking's for, you know, and that, like, here's the thing, when you're networking, same thing, like, there's two things that I say. One is when you network, you know, when we're in that mode of like, I got to replace the income, you know, instead of that mode, when you're in these modes, you could walk up to somebody and be like, I applied to these 3 companies this week. Have you ever worked there? Do you know anybody there? I'm curious about the culture. That's a good way to go. Because I did that in my search, and I sidestepped a huge thing that could have been bad. And then months later, they called me back, and I did interview with them. I didn't even take my network's gospel truth on that. I still went all the way through the interview process. It was like, ooh, I'm not doing this. This is not for me. So you can ask your network about culture. And I think to ask them about visibility, could you help me get some visibility? I just want to know because in the end of the day, you just want to know if there's 150 candidates, did they read yours? I mean, really, when we get right down to it, even if you're declined, you would feel better knowing that somebody read it, right? So ask for, can you just give me some visibility on my application? Go ahead, Chris.
Good morning. Thank you for your time today.
You're
Appreciate
welcome.
it. Can you talk a little bit about ChatGPT and it being adaptive? Because obviously we're logged in when we're using it. And I say, write me a cover letter for this job description and keep it short, keep it concise.
Yeah.
It doesn't do it. And then I say, reduce it by 50%, it doesn't seem like it learns. And I'm just wondering, is there things that I need to be doing to have it be more adaptive instead of being repetitive every time of reduce it by 50%, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, so what I do is I take it paragraph by paragraph and I run it through by paragraph, not the whole document, and that really helps. I know a writer that writes a book, he does not dump the book in there or even a page in the book, he dumps it by paragraph, sees what it spits out, massages it again, and then he uses that. So we found that to be effective or helpful. Because sometimes when to your point, when you keep reducing it down, it just uses bigger, flowery words to say the same thing. I'm the best candidate, the tallest, most good-looking, effective. You're like, no, this does not sound like a person anymore. Go ahead.
I wanted to speak, thanks. Thank you so much for your time today, and thank
Sure.
you so much for your expertise. I wanted to speak to the ATS myth, or the person behind the
Yeah,
ATS.
we can talk about that.
I spoke with a recruiter from a firm who recommended and gave me actually 5 examples of 4 to 6 page resumes in 0.6 font. That's
Okay.
opposite, and she was speaking to the ATS and the systems
Yeah.
that flagged those words. So I understand there's a person behind it, but is there a score? Are those resumes?
No.
I've always thought it was supposed to be like a 1 to 2 page
No.
resume and bullet
All right,
point.
so now I have to open up the Pandora's box on the ATS. A long time ago, I would say in a land far, far away, but it wasn't, it was here. It was here. They would have screening, so you did your application, then they'd have 5 screening questions like, do you really have a degree? Do you really, and you'd be like, yes, yes, We've thrown all those out. And so what would happen was when you answered the full question, the recruiter could, I never did, they could go in, scroll over to the right and see, 90 percentile, they were a qualified match, 60 percentile, 40 percentile. So then we would pick obviously the higher scores first and pull them in. Does that happen anymore? No. And it definitely doesn't happen due to discrimination and a lot of other reasons we don't add those kinds of things at the end of the screen. That's the only time an ATS decided something for us. And even all my colleagues, we didn't always go by that, We didn't always go by that. Yeah, you're welcome. Go ahead.
Hi, Elizabeth. So I apologize if you answered this question because I was distracted by Foster. So more and more lately, the jobs I'm applying for require cover letters. So I didn't see any prompts for that. Is that the place where you regurgitate the piece that you don't
Yeah.
know? Thank you.
Yeah, so Dallas Women That Code absolutely came unraveled with me on that thing too, because they not only wanted a 10 to 20 page resume in tech, but they also wanted a cover letter me too. And I'm like, we don't see them anymore. That hasn't been done in 5 years. And they're like, that's not true. We're being asked to do cover letters. So I don't know what that's about. And it's a very, very small percentage. And really what I said to them was anything that you have to say that's of critical importance to us. Like we get a lot of applications that are from another state, but if you write in your resume in the top line, we'll relocate at own cost, well then I'm going to consider you. If you write green card holder or US citizen, we're going to consider, because we know those are 2 things we're not going to do out of the gate. 99% of the time, we're not going to do that. So that's going to bring you in. And those sorts of things we used to address on the cover letter. Like, hey, I'm getting ready to move. I'm moving to the area. I have family and friends. They love hearing that because then you're not a flight risk. So anyway, but in general, yeah, it's
Could you
not.
just make it a quick summary if it's required out of the ATS? You add a cover letter?
If they want a cover letter, I don't know why they want one, but I would be very quick and easy and in and out of there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Really simple. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank
All
you.
right. Well, we're going to wrap it up for today. Thanks so much for being here. Connect with me on LinkedIn if you want me to look at your resume. If you have career questions, like I don't know how to do this, you want a hand, I'm more than happy to set up a 10, 15-minute call with you in the next week or so, and you can come to the call with any of your questions. All right. Thank you very much.
So guys, and Pete is with us. Pete is our leader here as well. Me, John, and Pete try to do everything that we can to make sure that we are getting you guys good information and all of that sort of thing. Pete, did they get you a seat? You're fine? Okay. Pete's a young guy. He doesn't have a back like mine. So, but guys, Pete and I are all over the place in supporting of this ministry. So I wanted to get Pete up here with us as well. I know that you guys got stirred up when Elizabeth was telling you things, so we want to answer any questions. So I want to ask anybody if there is any question that's flowing through your mind, right? Oh, good. Excellent. I knew somebody come up with something. All right, John, could you hand that fellow right there the mic?
You mean Brad?
Brad. Yeah, I couldn't see that far. See, I told you I was getting older.
Thank you for the opportunity. Let me tell you about all the things I've done.
Pete, I'm here all week.
I'm out of here.
So my question is very simple. The reality that I hear at this table is slightly different than what Elizabeth was throwing out.
Okay.
Because my experience is there are prompts that say, do you really have all these things? And they also ask for things that they shouldn't ask, like, what sex are you? Are you,
Yes.
And so there's all these things where they start to ask the things that they're not supposed to ask. And we, as applicants, feel we have to answer them, as opposed to saying, I wish not to answer. Because I feel a wish not to answer is flag. This is a problem child. I don't want this problem child in my company. The we is gone, and it's you out. That's kind of the thought that I have.
That's a good thought. That's a good area of conversation. So
You're welcome.
You want me to pass the mic to you to talk about that kind of thing? I know it's good for Pete. Wes or Daniel, do you guys have anything you want to throw in on that? Okay, good, Wes.
Yeah, we need to use the mic for the recording.
Okay, cool. Yes.
Yeah, so I think like every recruiter in every environment, every shop probably has slightly different processes. And so what she spoke about earlier, I feel like there's some overlap that like we may have shared experiences in, and then there's going to be some like discrepancies that there's just, we all have slightly different processes. So when I post a job on LinkedIn, if it's an on-site position in Dallas, I've got some prompts. Like if my client isn't willing to sponsor, like I want to know about your work authorization status. I want to know like do you live? Are you local to DFW? Are you willing to come on site every day for work? And so I want you to answer those questions before I don't ask about sex, and I haven't seen that response or that pre-screen question. But I think that some of those questions sometimes are going to be part of the process, and there can be value there. And so, the ones that you're comfortable filling out, if you can kind of imagine how that could be useful and you're qualifying you for a position or not, then I would encourage you to, fill those out. And then if you're like, this doesn't really seem relevant, probably a HR person put this together and there's, some of them are just unnecessary, then I think you could probably leave that blank and not run a high risk of being disqualified.
I'm not talking about prompts. Prompts I understand, but when you're talking about male, female, disability, veteran, all of those things, they require me to answer them.
Yeah.
So this isn't a question of whether I will or will not. It's do I want the job?
Those are some concerning questions, especially for pre-applicants. I've seen those once you're in the application process, and sometimes they do that just to make sure that they're getting diversified candidates. When the companies that I worked for in the past, that information is not tied to the candidate. It's just for a number to see how many males have applied, how many people of color, et cetera, et cetera. But if a company is asking me, for example, when did you graduate from high school? Well, that's none of your business because you're asking me an age question. And if there's an organization that consistently would ask those kinds of questions at the pre-qualifying, I don't know that this is an organization I would want to work for. I mean, to be honest, we're not in a position, if we're looking for a job, we're not in a position to start turning away things, but I don't think all companies are asking those kinds of questions at the very beginning. And I might steer clear of those companies that are, because it may not be the greatest work environment to work in anyway. Yes, there are Fortune 100 companies that may do that, unfortunately. That's the world we live in, unfortunately. And just because it's a Fortune 100 company doesn't make it a great place to work. Okay?
I'm suspect if it's Fortune 100 because that's been my whole life.
Go ahead. So anybody else want to comment?
I just want to reiterate exactly what you said, because it's where in the screening process you're getting those questions. If you're just close to getting an offer from them and you have to be on the application system and have to be able to run a background check and get it eventually set up for payroll, I'm going to be asking those kind of questions. And she's right, EEOC also requirements, separate, completely separate from your application process is knowing, ethnicity and all that stuff.
is completely separate. That's all government reporting separate from you being a qualified candidate or not. For the pre, I completely agree. For the pre, if they're asking for SS number, date of birth, and all that stuff, no. We had this conversation yesterday with somebody. SS number, if they're asking it in the pre-application process, it's my phone number that's going in there. Asking my date of birth, I'm putting in today's date. So they don't need to have that information unless you're an actual applicant and you're being set up in the system. So I would wonder who's asking you those questions and why, especially in that pre-stage. I don't. Those questions are voluntary? I know you had your. Right. Correct. Correct.
So just to add from a job seeker standpoint of view to the EEOC, is it? They're all voluntary because they're trying to get some diversity number or metrics or credits towards paid grants from the government to justify some payout for them for X amount of money that's paid. If you read through it, it is voluntary. You do answer it best to your ability. Sometimes I answer female, sometimes I said prefer not to answer. Just depends on the mood I am of the day, but it's all voluntary. They're not required for them to use that piece into the application process. So the other piece too, and I heard this one at a different group, I think it was HR Heidi, had mentioned that someone was asking her a question about disability. Well, they already know my disability. Why am I addressing it during the interview process? She said from an HR standpoint, the hiring managers don't have access to those voluntary questions. Even if you put, yes, I have a disability, no, I don't. Those are all volunteer. Those are for metric purposes. And from a recruiter standpoint, she said the hiring manager doesn't have access to that. Hopefully that helps you.
I will add that some of those disability questions, though, during the final application, if you need special consideration when I hire you, wheelchair access or special monitor or anything, the hiring manager will, and the HR manager will need to know that, so I can make those accommodations for you. Yes. Hang on, John's got a mic there for you.
To be on mic, okay. I was just curious about your perspective on ATS. You know, I was listening to Elizabeth and her kind of explaining all that, and I have paired with a resume writer who was basically told me that words are rated on a scale of 1 to 5. There were a few words that he had in my resume that I wasn't comfortable with, and I told him, I said, this is not something I can speak to. I am not comfortable having this on my resume. And he said, well, I'm just going to let you know that that's a level 5 word. And so he said that, yeah, that's what he said. And he said, you know, your resume is getting scored. And that's basically the first time that someone's going to the machine is going to be looking at that. So that's your first kind of pass through. And so, you know, I understand what she was saying because I've toyed with this too. You don't want to have things on there just to get through a system. And then you get to the point where you're in an interview process and there's not, you know, a connection between some of those things. So I was just curious how how are these companies using ATS? I was surprised that he got to that micro level on verbiage in my resume.
It's a good question. I want to throw something at you, kind of a different perspective. So when we're talking about ATSs and just the application process in general, it's kind of a crapshoot sometimes. And, you know, it doesn't matter what kind of questions are being asked, doesn't matter what kind of key terms are being scored. The reason why firms like Wes and I work at are in existence is because we can kind of bypass that kind of information. So an applicant applying to a position at, you know, CBS, when they do the application and the ATS is scored, that's one thing. But if you go through a vendor like Emotion, we're able to bypass that ATS in a way to where we can sell them, we provide the resume, so there's not really a score associated with it. Now, don't get me wrong, we have clients that have ATS systems that will kick it back and they'll say, hey, was disqualified, and we won't really know an actual reason why. That's not a partner of ours. That's just a client that we work with that we can hopefully get a placement or two out of it. I will tell you that the old school approach right now, in my opinion, is the best way to go. CVS, I know, is a big company. I don't mean to just single out CVS. I'll say Walgreens. Instead of taking a days at a time and sending out applications and hoping that somebody on the other end is going to either match the key terms or have an interest in something in the resume, calling the companies, going on LinkedIn and finding contact information and asking them, how do I get in touch with the person that is hiring for this position? Who is your talent acquisition department director, manager, whatever it be? Everything that you can do to differentiate yourself, make yourself unique, make yourself, instead of just doing that application and having a resume writer and thinking that these key terms are going to match to this, it's really luck. I mean, it hopefully it'll happen, but it probably won't. And I think the whole gist of this whole thing is the networking part. Like, I might know somebody that he might know, and Wes might know somebody that is layers deep with somebody else, and those conversations are going to get you a lot farther in the process than it would for trying to figure out how the ATS is really scoring all this stuff.
Keep in mind, there isn't one ATS or two or three. There's hundreds of variations. Because assuming that a company even bought the software package and it wasn't homegrown, now did I buy the maintenance package with that? Am I tailoring it in-house? Am I changing it every year? Has it been the same since I bought it in 1970? I mean, you don't know. So when I hear that companies are out there, somebody's teaching how to beat an ATS, good luck. So you know hundreds of them, huh? So just focus on the keywords. Focus. If you're working with someone like Motion or something, obviously they can't bypass it because they can present the client to all their customers. But keep in mind that there isn't just one ATS. So just because it worked on one doesn't mean it's going to work on the next one. It just depends on what version or what type they're using out there.
And then you mentioned that someone had encouraged you to put a word on your resume that was a level 5 word that you were like, I'm not comfortable speaking to that in an interview. Please don't put that on your resume because, like Elizabeth said, be a qualified candidate. And so if you come up on a search because you have a level 5, I never heard of a level 5 word, but if there was a level 5 word and you came up on a search and I said, wow, great, you have it. I've been looking for that word on a resume. Tell me about your experience with it. And you're like, somebody told me to put it on there. I don't know anything about it. That's worse than if you didn't have it on there. But I look for a data analyst with Excel VLOOKUPs and pivot tables and SQL on their resume. And I look on LinkedIn and Indeed and places like that, and it sorts them by relevancy. And so a candidate that has Excel one time on his resume or her resume is going to be lower on the list of candidates that come up in that search than a candidate that has it on there 3 or 4 times. And if you've done VLOOKUPs and pivot tables within Excel, but you just have Microsoft Office, including Excel, listed in your skills section of your resume, then I'm not going to realize that. Or, if you did it in your last 3 jobs, but you only put it 3 jobs ago, then I'm like, well, she hasn't done it in 5 or 6 years, But if you've done it, I mean, it may feel redundant, but it moves you up in relevancy. And if you don't want to, maybe you don't get the phone call, or maybe you don't, get considered for the role. Maybe you do. When I get you on the phone, I ask you that question. I'm like, wow, I see you've got Excel VLOOKUPs and pivot tables. Was that the only place that you did it? Or you have VLOOKUPs, but you don't have pivot tables, or you don't have SQL. Have you used that? And if you're like, yeah, actually I have, but I didn't want my resume to bleed into page 2, I'm like, hey, you're leaving out skill sets that make you qualified for this opportunity that, I'm only considering candidate, like my client said, only send me candidates that have these skills. And how can I know that you have them? It's hard to read between the lines when I'm doing a search on LinkedIn or Indeed, and have to go through that extra effort. So include keywords if you've got technology skill sets, tell me how you used them, tell me where you used them in that way, and you're going to be more likely to be able to have conversations with decision makers.
And that was a great question, by the way. I just want to co-sign on what everybody else said. A lot of times people, and the thing with recruiters, I mean, all of us, we're different. And recruiters look for different things, managers look for different things. So we try to give you generic answers that will help in whatever your situation is. There may be a manager out there that wants to see that specific keyword. And if that's the case, and if that's not you, that's not the right job, and it's okay. Move on and find something that's really and truly right for you. The other thing is that we can do everything right. I mean, we can put the keywords in there, and I'm not saying you should do a resume for every single job that you apply to, but it's important that you look at that specific job description and see what they're really and truly looking for. And if there's anything, any keywords, if you want to use that, if there's anything that you want to highlight in your resume and you have that skill set, that's what you want to do. Just as he said, pivot tables, VLOOKUPs, if you had that skill set, if you didn't have it on your resume, add it, especially if it's in the job description. So as Elizabeth said, you can do everything right. You can make sure that your resume looks good. If they need a cover letter, which I never read cover letters, but if that company asks for cover letters, you can do everything right. But at the end of the day, don't get discouraged. I mean, she said something today that really resonated with me. She said, you have to have a source. You have to have something that's going to keep you going. You know, whether that's, you know, Jesus Christ or Allah or Buddha or whatever, you have to have something that's going to give you that strength to keep going. Because looking for a job is not easy. It can be very painful at times, especially if you've been looking for a while. So don't be afraid to use that source, because you're going to need it during those hard times when you're looking for a job and it's not coming. But hang in there. It's going to happen. It is going to happen. So hang in there. There's no silver bullet, but hang in there. It will happen.
Before I go to Bill, I want to tell you guys what I'm observing. It sounds to me like there's an element that we focus on that's really not getting us the distance that we need to get to make those connections for those jobs. Because, y'all, the job search never goes as fast as we want it to go. The only problem with companies is that people work there. So, yeah. And you know what, guys? And you hear me talk about it all the time. Connections. The technology is wonderful, but I'm not, if I see something I'm interested in, I'm going to connect with somebody that's going to get me in there, or I get to talk to somebody about something. To give me an opportunity, I might be able to build a relationship with someone that can endorse me. That goes beyond the technology, and I applied for this, and I've got this on my resume and all that sort of thing. That's why we have a network, and that's why it's as expansive as it is in 35 states in the United States now. So, guys, we do not want to forget the people part of this thing. Keep the people element going, because the technology is all wonderful, and it doesn't always work out for Foster all the time. Sometimes we apply for a job, we get in the applicant tracking system, and the recruiter never even saw our resume because he got 500 other ones. So what's going to get you noticed? Well, you know, I know Steve Sulkin, and he's got a friend that works at the, I'm picking on you today, Steve. Hopefully I'm not sticking a knife in my back. It's good. And, you know, Steve knows somebody. Steve might know the hiring manager for that position. And if I've got a relationship with Steve, Steve can tell that hiring manager, hey, Foster's resume is in there somewhere. You may not have seen it, but, you know, I talked to Foster a little bit about that position, and I think you might want to talk to Foster about that. I like this Foster guy. He's all right. I mean, he's ugly, but he's all right. And you know what'll happen? What y'all think will happen if Steve said, hey, check him out?
Check him out.
Okay, Bill, you're smarter than me. You go.
So this has been a phenomenal journey as I started about 2 months ago. And so when I first dusted off my resume, which I hadn't used in a couple of decades, and I thought, oh, that's an awesome resume. I updated it with what I've been doing. And then I laid it out there, and the really smart guys said, yeah, this is awesome, but I don't know what you do or who you are. Go away. I humbly took their advice, and then I learned that it's a sales process like anything else. Just as we've done, it's a sales process. You want to learn all about you, and then you want to learn all about them and go forward. So my question now is that I've progressed a little bit further with y'all's guidance, and I've applied for some jobs in the past with my early generalized vanilla cake resume, and now I have something a little bit more dressed up. I have a cronut resume.
Oh, man.
What is the impact of me going back to those old jobs that I've already applied for? Can I go back in again? Or in some cases, as I feel like I've evolved my own branding and who I am, there's positions at executive level of strategy that I thought was in my resume before, and as I look at it now, it's not there at all. So what about revising a resume and applying for jobs again in that sector, or to get that elevate in?
Passing on down the line.
I think it depends on the company. Some companies won't allow you to apply for the same job within a time frame. It may depend on the company. Some, I think it's 3 months, 6 months. Some may even be a year. But I would reapply if I could once you've completely revised your resume. That's my recommendation. So.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it depends on the time that's passed too. You know, if I saw a candidate applied to my position last month and I looked at it and they weren't a fit, and then I see that name again, it's unlikely that I'm going to open them and be like, if I recognize the name, maybe I will a second time. But again, I think it does flag a lot of times in some ATSs, if your resume has been already applied, they'll see that it's a duplicate, and then they'll be like, well, you know, we've already considered that person and passed on them. Now, if 3 to 6 months has passed, you know, in that type of time frame, then someone might think, well, maybe they've worked since then, and then if you have relationships or connections with those folks, and you can say, hey, you know, there was some stuff on my resume that I hadn't included, and I have now, and I think it makes me more relevant and more marketable for that role. Then, like, let's talk about that and get you back in front of that hiring manager. But I think it's unlikely that if you just are submitting into a portal a month after you've already applied and not been considered, that you'll be reconsidered with a new resume. Yeah, if the position is reposted, I would apply again, because maybe the reason you weren't selected last time is because they filled it and then that person fell out, didn't work out for whatever reason. Now it's back open. Let's consider this person again. Or maybe we were only hiring one person. You know, you were a close second, but we found our first. Well, now there's a second opening because of growth or what have you. So let's look at those candidates that we may have overlooked because we found our guy. Now we need a second guy. You might be him.
Yeah. Morning. I think you mentioned at the beginning that when you perform a search on LinkedIn, you search for specific words. I'm in information technology. I have 18 years of experience. Is that search happening on the skills area or also on the experience area? Because what happened is, if I put all the list of software that I have had experience in the past in 18 years, I have a big list, right? So sometimes I don't know if I need to remove one and put one, but you never know who is searching for it, right? So is it count that it's outside of the skills area, that it's in the position that you had, or where is that search performed?
If it's COBOL and Fortran, you know, or C++, I mean, probably you can take some of those off and put some cloud or some, you know, cybersecurity, something like that in there. If I see it on your resume from 15 years ago, I'm like, does that make you more qualified for the job that you're considering today? Less likely. But from the last 5 years, more likely. And then you can put an environment section at the bottom of your resume. So if I see it in technical skills at the top of the resume, I'm like, did he take a class on it? Did he watch a YouTube video? Did somebody just tell him to put it on his resume? But if I see it in your professional experience, you know, I designed, developed, configured, upgraded this technology. Okay. And you did that in your current job. That tells me a lot more information than it was in your skills section. But it's pulling in my search, it's pulling from all of those places. But then once you come up in my search and I look at your resume, then I'm like, oh, it's just in the skills section. I have so many questions. do I want to call this guy? But, oh, no, it's in his professional experience. I can see where he did it. And maybe it's just so much, and so I can't put it in every bullet on the professional experience, but I can have an environment section that's like the bottom line that says what technologies were in this environment. And then I can speak to that if I call you, if somebody calls you.
Okay, one example that I have with that is, for example, Microsoft Office, right? I was in charge of rolling out Microsoft Office at a global scale, but sometimes people look for PowerPoint or Microsoft Teams, right? We all know those are part of Microsoft Office, so I wasn't sure, okay, should I need to detail all those small words over there, or is just saying a Microsoft suite? That's something that I was considering there.
Yeah, I mean, like 365, have 365 on there. Yep,
Okay.
and then the others. I mean, I think you kind of got to use discernment. Sometimes you're going to put. I mean, I wouldn't go overkill with putting PowerPoint, Teams,
Right.
Word, Excel on every
Yeah.
single bullet. But like, there's stuff that you would have experience with Teams that is going to be helpful. That you can know how to set up those video calls and know how to like troubleshoot in that area or know how to communicate and speak that technology. But you can include it in that environment section. Maybe not like Word is probably going to be less important to less
Right.
depending on if it's an IT job. They're not. Most of them aren't looking for Microsoft Word a bunch of times. But some of those others maybe put that in the environment section like Office 365, MS Teams, and MS Excel, PowerPoint, what have you.
Got it. Thank you.
Mario, pay attention to what they're asking for. Study that company. What do they do? And then look at that job description and figure out as best you can, figure out what it is that they're looking for. A lot of what you're talking about, information, you got a list of things, but if they're not asking for that as a functionality of what you're looking for, but if they're looking for that Microsoft Office implementation or whatever it is, and you need to put that true.
Got it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And just to follow up on that too, with your first question on the skills versus the actual putting the skills in the body of the resume or of the LinkedIn profile, we were told, I don't know, maybe less than a year ago, that LinkedIn had done some changes, and we were advised not to search for candidates based on the actual like skills that you can put like at the bottom. We were doing it more or less on a Boolean search string. So what I heard in you when you said roll out global scale of Microsoft Office, that's what I care about. Like, it's not going to be the PowerPoint and the Excel and all that. It's the rollout. It's the global piece. And I would just tell you that, if you're questioning whether to put it in your skill set, your environment, or the body, put it in all. I mean, like if it's that important to you and the position that you're applying for, and Wes had a great example of putting the environment for each job, just at the very bottom. You'll see that in some of the resumes out there. And that's good, but we want to know what you did with it. I mean, you were in a Java environment, but did you do anything in Java? Like, we want to know what your actual role was with that, any successes that happened with it. So hopefully that helps.
Yes, thank you.
Who's next?
Thanks, Scott.
Okay, I'm one of those that after COVID, I switched careers. So I was in call center for 21 years and mortgage. Now I'm in property management. Okay, well, I've only got 3 years of property management as far as regionals and all of that. And most of the qualifications are all the jobs are asking for 5 years. How do I make myself more prominent with having less than those 5 years?
Be smart, Alec. I said you lie, but obviously you shouldn't do that. The profession you were at before, the call center, there's probably some skills that also apply to the present position you're in. So I would definitely highlight those. So even though I've only got 3 years, my prior experience doing call centers also allowed me to bring these skills to the job, which most people don't have. So I would definitely work on those transferable skills. What is it? And I like to tell people, when I work with them, that especially in your case and others that I have either transition or whatever, I try to use that about section, almost like a little mini cover letter. Since nobody reads cover letters, but they will read my LinkedIn profile, make that transition for the person looking at your LinkedIn profile within your About section. Due to my years in customer service, these, 6 or 7 skills I found also play in this property section, the property management section. So I would make that very clear for the viewer that you can do that, because a lot of times people looking at your LinkedIn profile, sorry guys, are probably sourcers, don't have much experience, and they can't make that tie on their own. So you make it for them in that About section. At least that's one of the things that I've been doing, especially if you're transitioning careers or whatever, is make that tie for the reader right there in your About section. I use this over here, therefore it plays over here, and I've used it, especially with your 3 years already. This is how I've used that. So it gives me the equivalent of having those 5 years or whatever they're looking for.
Okay, thank you.
Can I stand up? Hi. So at a month ago, I had brought this up originally, and I got 80%, 70% answer, but I don't have full clarity on what I'm about to ask. And you brought it up before, so I'm going to expand on it. Has to do with software and software knowledge. So I'm a finance manager, finance guy. And I'd say in the last 20 years, I don't think I've ever started a position where I knew the ERP or the software before I started. But I'm at such a level where, oh, you use JDE? Okay, I learned JDE in a month or two. You're on AMB and mortgage? Okay, I learned that in a month or two. But just by the way the ball has bounced, yeah, I did Power BI for about 2 months, about 3 years ago, and I've not done Tableau. What are the 2 things that you want to show on your resume? Power BI and Tableau if you're a finance guy. Now, I can go on LinkedIn or I can go on YouTube and I can get the tutorials that I can do at home because I'm not in a full-blown office environment. And I can learn a fair amount that way, and I can talk to it. But if I'm on an interview or I'm putting it on my resume, if I put Power BI, rightfully so, the assumption is he must know Power BI, he must have worked with it for a little while out in the job. Or if I put Tableau, well, he must have worked with it on the job. And that's where I get stuck, because it's frustrating because I know that I can go into a position at my level. You want me to learn Tableau? Flip, I'll sit there at night for a month and learn Tableau. But you're never really given that benefit of the doubt. And if I say, well, I'm learning it at home, not the same thing as I did it on the job for 2 or 3 years. So I just wanted to get your feedback on what I just said. Anything way to hit that? You know?
I mean, so the 2 months that you've got it, the Power BI from the job that you did it at, have it on there, be able to speak to it. It's kind of depends on who you're competing against. And so if you have 90% of the qualifications and they already have a strong Tableau person there, they can teach you that skill set, and they recognize that you're going to take initiative and learn it or at night for the first month on the job on your own, and you've learned all these other skill sets in all of your other jobs. And I think a lot of employers are going to be willing to take a chance on you. If they're like, Tableau is the biggest thing that we're missing in this environment, we need an expert to come in, hit the ground running with Tableau, and you're like, well, I watched a video on it. They're like, that's just not going to cut it for this opportunity, you know. But I think still put it on your skills section on your resume if you can speak to what you do know about it. You just don't have it in the experience section where you've done it because you haven't done it professionally. But you know, give that keyword an opportunity to come up, and then just show them what you know, and make a case for yourself of how you're a quick learner, and list the other things that are similar products and tools that you've used. And sometimes like a job comes out and we look for the guy with the Tableau and Power BI and Finance Manager for a month. We don't find it. We tell the hiring manager, this is what we are finding. And he's like, okay, you know what? I can flex on that. The Tableau is now preferred instead of a hard and fast requirement. Find me somebody that has done a little bit of Power BI and that's a quick learner, and then you come up a little bit later and you're qualified.
But you know, Dean, on the front end of that, you don't know at what magnitude they need somebody to understand that. You might have that. I know, are at a senior level anyway. So there's a whole lot more to the job that they're going to hire you for than these picky-ish little things, you know.
Yeah, do you have, did you get certifications for these things that you studied? Okay, because I don't, sometimes LinkedIn Learning or whatever, you can get some kind of certification, and if you put that on there combined with your years of experience, I would tie the two together and going, obviously he can do it, he's got all these years of experience, so he knows the subject matter, it's just a matter of learning new software? Okay, I mean, but if you, especially if you've taken already courses. Yeah, LinkedIn Learning is free through your library. I mean, yeah. Not, there's LinkedIn Learning, there's Udemy, there's, if you can, Coursera, there's Computer Minds that sometimes teaches those things through your own tax dollars. Okay, there you go. It's about $365. So $1 a day, you can get your Tableau. So, Deborah, who's Deborah? Oh, Deborah over here.
Hello, I have a question. So if you have certifications, you have the history, and the qualifications, you have 10 years, like you see the job description, I'm a project manager, and you're like, easy. But you continue to get, nope, you didn't get the job. Nope, you didn't get the job. Everything you feel is aligned. You're just, project management is not hard. You have the same, you know, like the same things you do, the same qualifications, and you're certified. What suggestions do you have, even when you do not even make it out of the screening part? What questions do you know, like what advice would you have on that?
First of all, without looking at your LinkedIn profile or your resume, make sure those are not the issue.
It's not. It's not.
I mean, this is a generic question, but I would say do something different. You know, it's repeating the same thing over and over again, expecting different results will, you know, is the definition of insanity. And I know that's easier said than done, don't get me wrong. And when I say that don't apply for all these positions, go to recruiters, sometimes we don't have the jobs. Sometimes that's not a client of ours. All I'm saying is try to use every avenue at your disposal, just like with ChatGPT that we learned today. I mean, I was just telling you earlier that if we don't use the AI in front of us, it's not like they're going to completely replace us. But if we don't use it to its fullest advantage, we will get passed up. And it's the same thing with the differentiator, the uniqueness, calling into companies, doing something different, because if it's not working right now, expecting it to work, you know, in the near future it's very naive. So anything you can do, everything. I mean, think of every single type of way that you would appreciate a job applicant coming to you. You know, make yourself a recruiter for the day and say, what would I like to see? Not just in the skill set, but how the actual process, how the reach out, from the initial reach out to the follow up. How would I like to see it? And try that approach. And then you'll see that you'll start making improvements, or you'll see some differences whenever you change up your approach.
Yeah, so the thing about it is that project management is super saturated right now. It's pretty much everyone from everybody doing that. So while still in the market searching for it, just try to figure out what else is hot in the market that you can get, you know, educate yourself on and try to get in that way. I feel like we're doing that, and with ChatGPT, you can ask it those questions. How can I come up with this? You can be for recruiters and ask them, what do you guys have out there right now that we can actually get into? Once you figure that out, educate yourself on it, get yourself as best as you can in that field, and then go for it. And, you know, AI is a thing right now. Even if you don't have the experience, or maybe take a certification or something, that would always put you ahead of every other person that is not.
Okay.
I
regardless if you have the certification. But because I am volunteering with Project Management Institute, so I try to connect myself with the presidents and say, oh, I applied for this job, could you reach out? And so I'm being more intentional in finding the right person or someone that knows someone in this company, because I think it's all about getting your resume in front of someone or the right person that can also advocate for you. So that is something I am trying to do, because like you said, doing the same thing is not working, so we have to do something different.
That something different, Deborah, I think that's key. That may be an example of taking a resume and just run it through an AI system to see what recommendations they give you, because it could give you something very different on your resume. I mean, like you said, if you've been doing the same things, you're qualified, and you're not getting the responses that you need, maybe something needs to look completely different on your resume. So that would be a great candidate for an AI resume. Let's see what AI gives you. Here's somebody with these qualifications, and this is their background. What do you recommend? And just something different that may give you enough information so that you can go in and tweak your resume, make it yours, but then something that might get noticed. And last thing, somebody commented earlier about the time, how much time do you go back on your resume? I think the gentleman said he had 18 years of experience. So a question was posed, how many years should I put on the resume? I'm just curious what the panel says. And yeah, exactly. No more than 15 years of experience. So you don't want 30 years of experience on your resume. We don't want a 6-page resume. We don't need that.
And it can be a product of what you're applying for. If you're applying for expertise in a technology that hadn't been around for maybe 8 years, 5 years.
Actually, I have something I wanted to add on to Dean's question and something to validate your point, Wesley, about experience. So I applied to a role which was 99% matching my profile, and they wanted somebody with experience in implementing Salesforce Flossom tool, and I had experience implementing Salesforce Site Tracker tool, and she was like, no, the hiring manager is extremely particular that they want somebody with Salesforce Flossom experience. And I'm like, okay, fine, and I moved on. I kept applying to other places. And a month later, she reaches out saying, okay, fine, we brought down that requirement, and now we are okay with anybody having any kind of implementation experience with Salesforce. And then I got in, and I wanted to validate the point that you made that, sometimes these companies, they start off being so particular about what they want, and then, they might bring it down. If not, you just keep moving on and, applying to positions that you match. So.
See, guys, see what I mean when I say about the only problem with companies is that people work there? The companies, guys, do not, it's nothing against them, but this is a walk through and learn process for all of us, including corporations, guys. Sometimes they buy a piece of software that they're not complete. Everybody at the company doesn't completely know how to utilize other functionalities and stuff on that particular software that they just spent $3 million buying, And so at the same time, but if we make these relationships of people that can endorse us, once again, y'all always know how I'm always, I see Bruce back there, sorry, squirrel. But guys, you know what? We need to continue, just like you said, we need to continue moving. And sometimes those things will change in our, what is it? Monopoly says bank error in your favor. Yeah. Sometimes these changes are in your favor because you knew something that the company didn't know. Okay, guys, so John is here. And John is wanting to shut us down so we can get to the next phase of what we're supposed to be doing. And
I just want
go, John.
I just want to give people a chance to collect themselves and whatnot. And for those of you who are first-time attendees who are going to join us, you go out that door down the right, and we'll direct you to room 151. Well, yeah, I haven't moved the sign yet. Got everything else done, didn't move the sign. And again, if you've got comments, feedback, prayer requests, they go in the basket on the table in the back. and we thank you for your time and your participation. There's no silver bullet. And my 2 cents is, and Foster referenced it, we're dealing with the human race, okay? So, there's so much going on, and we're in such a busy, busy civilization with technology and this, family relationships. You gotta plan your work and work your plan and focus. Do the investigation, do the research, work your plan. And then you got the political stuff with DEI. I don't care what color you are, what race you are, what religion you are. If you've got the skills I need, I'm going to hire you. If we'd stop that garbage and just hire for skills. And the other thing is hiring for attitude. You can teach people skills, but you can't necessarily change their attitude. Huh?
Energy and enthusiasm.
Energy and enthusiasm. Yeah, there you go. So we hope you've got some good information here and it's been helpful to you. We certainly appreciate you being here. We'll meet again on May 7th. FriscoConnect.org. It's got a lot of resources on it. We also have a Groups.io email group we hope you're a part of. And we'll also have a group on LinkedIn and a group on Facebook. So reach out, connect. That's what we're all about. So God bless you all. Thank you for being here.